Shalom, family. How y'all doing today? If you can hear me, give me a number one. All right. So, family, today we got Minister Teo on. Hopefully, we'll have Sister E on as well. And the way we're going to do things today is that means we're going to have room for 3 patron guests. And so what we're going to do is we're going to give each patron like 5 minutes apiece. Once we send out the links to, basically give their input. And so we're going to start off with a video. We're going to look at a video and we're going to look at some articles. And let's have a discussion on reparations.
Georgetown University's endowment is worth well over $1 billion, but back in 1838 it was struggling financially. The Maryland Jesuits, a religious order that started and still owns the university, sold 272 slaves that year to pay off some debts. The independent Georgetown Memory Project has tracked down about 10,000 of their direct descendants. One of the slaves sent to work on this sugar plantation in Louisiana was Cornelius Hawkins, whose great-great-granddaughter still lives in the state.
First off, it opened up a lot in my life. I know where I'm from. I know my people. That matters a lot. That has given me a kind of wholeness and completeness that's so important.
Georgetown has set up 3 advisory groups, including one focused on descendant and community engagement. Last year, undergraduates here at Georgetown also voted in favor of creating a fund for the descendants. The referendum sent a clear message to the university's leadership, but was also non-binding. The university says it's developing a fund for community-based projects with, quotes, financial support commensurate with or exceeding the amount outlined in the student referendum. The founder of the Georgetown Memory Project, who studied at the university, is calling for much more.
It seems to me that Georgetown and the Roman Catholic Church in the United States have a much greater responsibility. I think they should pay some form of reparations to these families, up to and including perhaps educating their children at no cost.
This year's protests to end systemic racism and police brutality have also reignited the long-running debate over reparations at a national level.
Now is the time to go big.
On CNBC this month, media mogul Robert Johnson proposed the US government should provide $14 trillion of reparations to cut the historical wealth gap. For some, reparations aren't just about money. They're about America coming to terms with its national story.
That this is a great country that became great, and leaving out what it took for this to become a world power and an economic power. And it was on the backs of enslavement. And with leaving that out, it's a fairy tale and not the truth.
Democrats in Congress are now pushing for a commission to study how the federal government could even try to compensate the Black community for centuries of enslavement. Giles Gibson, CGTN, Washington.
So, family, what we're going to do is we're also going to look at two articles about reparations, the call for reparations. And also, I'm going to say happy Juneteenth for all the Hebrew Israelites out there. I mean, we know we weren't really freed on June 19th, but hey, why not celebrate it, right? So let's look at the article concerning this whole change in, well, apparent change. I mean, I don't know how this thing gonna work out. All I know is the scripture says we leave with great wealth. So let's continue. So Lloyd's of London apologizes for role in Atlantic slave trade. British insurance giant Lloyd's of London apologized for his role in the Atlantic slave trade amid an international uproar over systemic racism. Lloyd said it was sorry for propping up the slave industry in the 18th and 19th centuries, which it called an appalling and shameful period of English history, as well as our own. The company was a dominant provider of insurance for enslaved people and the ships that transported them. At Lloyd's, we understand that we cannot always be proud of our past, the 334-year-old firm said in a statement. In acknowledging our own history, we also remain committed to focusing on the actions we can take today to shape our future into one that we can truly be proud to stand by. Lloyd's pledged several actions to make up for its checkered past, including giving financial support to charities, promoting inclusion and opportunity for Black people and other ethnic minorities. The company said it will also invest in recruiting and retaining people of color and review its employee policies and organizational artifacts to make sure they are explicitly non-racist. The move came amid a reckoning with racism and the legacy of slavery following the police killings of George Floyd in Minneapolis, which sparked protests in the US, the UK, and other countries. Lloyd's posted its apology on its website last week, but it wasn't widely reported until Wednesday. Lloyd's was one of 9 UK companies that benefited directly or indirectly from the British government's effort to compensate slave owners when slavery was abolished in 1833, according to the Telegraph. Simon Fraser, one of Lloyd's founder subscribers, received the equivalent of nearly 400,000 British pounds to give up a Dominican estate where enslaved people worked, the newspaper reported. Green King, a British pub chain whose founder also received a hefty payout when abolition took hold, also apologized for its link to slavery in a statement to the Telegraph. It is inexcusable that one of our founders profited from slavery and argued against its abolition in the 1800s. Green King chief executive Nick McKenzie told the paper, "We don't have all the answers, so that is why we are taking time to listen and learn from all the voices, including our team members and charity partners, as we strengthen our diversity and inclusion." Let's talk about this. I have one more article. We'll talk about that later. Let's get Minister Teo on, and let's have a conversation on this. Minister Teo, what is your thoughts? And also, Minister Teo, I'm going to send you that email for the extra links to invite people on. Sister E, welcome, Sister E.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Yes,
well.
we can hear you.
Okay. Is it too loud?
Sounds good.
Okay, great.
So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about this a bit, family, and a link will be sent out to Patreon followers to be able to participate in this discussion. And what we're going to do is make sure that we have time limits set so that everyone can participate, everyone can become join the discussion in a timely manner. So Minister Teo, what's your thoughts on this whole reparation thing? Because for me, I'm like, okay, well, don't apologize and don't give my money to a charity, right? Don't give my money to a charity, because I'm coming for my personal check. I want my money right now. Some people are going to say, well, we need to wait on the Lord, before we leave. Well, we don't know what reparations is going to look like. We don't know what that great substance is going to look like. I mean, it could be skills. It could be all of that, right? It could be, as we talked before in the past, our skill sets that we leave with could be that. But I think it's more than that, right? I think we're going to get value for the labor of our ancestors and for all the evil that they've done to us. So, Minister Taylor, what's your thoughts on this?
Greetings, family. In the words of the famous Riley Freeman, pay what you owe, right? I would say they're not going to pay anything. It's posturing. To give us what they owe us, you know, they can't compete, right? They will lose to us if they give us that money. They know that. I mean, they didn't work the fields to make the country into what it is today. So without us, how will this country function? And I guarantee you, a lot of the Gentiles, I mean, you look how they're responding to Confederate statues being pulled down. I mean, if they see us getting money, they will hit the streets and go buck wild. Okay, so this is all posturing, in my opinion. They do owe it. They won't pay it. I think the intention is to give to some foundation and the money rolls back into their pocket. But if they're sincere, what they need to do, they do need to give us, look, don't even start talking numbers unless you minimum 30 trillion up, right? Just to talk. On top of that, no more taxes, right? No more taxes. You know, they know that they can't make up for what they've done and what they're doing. But the best attempt would be, you know, give us our money, no more taxes, get out of our way. It won't happen though, because we're looking at the same people that allow cops to kill us in the street, even when we're unarmed, when our back is turned. They choke us to death. I mean, we're talking about asking for these people. And I mean, you have the legislation, you know, the actions of the police is a thumbs up from the legislators, because the legislators could have put an end to this hundreds of years ago, at least decades ago. They could have put an end to this, but they didn't, which means it's a thumbs up from the legislator. So,
okay, so my question is this. Okay, the scripture says we're going to come out with great substance. And if we use the ancient Exodus from Egypt, right, the first Exodus as an example, right, the ones who enslaved our ancestors are the ones who paid. So these people, the ones who enslaved our ancestors and us, because we're still enslaved, you know, they're the ones that have to pay. So the question we have to ask is, what does that substance look like? What does that wealth look like? What does that transfer look like?
What caused them to pay, right, is the fear of the Lord.
Yeah, but my question is, what would it look like in today's economy? Will that be dollars? Will it be gold? Will it be silver? Because here's the thing. Okay, we know that the U.S. government and all the European people, right, that when they make a treaty or an agreement with someone, they're going to break it. We know that for a fact. So as soon as you get, let's say they give us dollars. Soon as you get dollars, switch them out, right? Buy a property, buy land, buy gold, whatever, because you know the value's not going to be there for very long. Now, it would absolve them in their mind that they're free from any more obligation, because in their mind they gave us reparations, right? But I'm of the opinion that we don't know what the reparation is going to look like, but we just so happens to have, during the time of the greatest pandemic the world has ever seen, at least in our lifetimes, and the awakening of Israel, we have the call for reparations. Right now, it just so happens because of this pandemic, and then we had, the killing of one of our brethren, George Floyd. Now there's focus on our plight. This is the time to call for what you owe, to pay what you owe. It's time for them to pay. Now, I call on all vloggers, all YouTube video vloggers, to talk about reparations today, tomorrow, and the next day, right? Because the more we make it, where every time they go on YouTube, they see a discussion from us about reparations, we pull them coals on their heads. Sister E, what's your thought?
I think it's going to eventually happen, but I think it's going to be more of a global initiative. You know, we already got the UN looking into it. If you remember the article of the UN discussing reparation. So I'm looking at it from a global standpoint, because you got to look at this, that at one time the US was considered to be, you know, pretty decent liked country. Now every nation hates just about hates this country, because of, I guess, the history and the current president that we have. So I think it will be a global initiative, because if you notice in the scriptures, it talks about how other nations are going to come to our aid. So I think it's going to be more so of a global thing than just the U.S. deciding to do it. I think it's going to be a situation where they're going to have to do it. It ain't going to be a thing of where they're going to give us reparation because they like, oh, kumbaya, we're so sorry. No, it's going to be either some way or another. They're going to have to do it. And when you look at it, you know, if the UN wanted to do anything to the U.S., you know, they could literally bring them in on war crimes or negative things.
Crimes against humanity.
Yes, crimes against humanity. That's what I was trying to get. That's how I can see it happening like that, but never will they want to give. I think it'll be a thing of they're going to have no choice to give. Because again, if you think about it, all the nations are supposed to come down on this nation in the last days. So that's my thought on it. I think it'll happen, but it'll be a thing, like you said, they're going to have to do it.
So the question is this a move of God or not? Because remember, we're waking up. Our brethren on the African continent are waking up. Our people around the world are waking up. Now, as we mentioned in a previous show, you know, some of them are going into Kemet. You know, some of them going into ancestral worship back to the motherland. The unifying point is that they're all waking up and wanting to go back to the motherland. So is the call for reparations and the concern about whether or not they should pay us, is it a move of God? Is this a part of the prophecies of Genesis 15 and Isaiah 60? Is this the beginning of it?
I would say it I mean, if you put all the current events together, probability wise, yes, it's a move of the Most High. You know, after the 400 years, we have turmoil, we have natural disasters, we have the whole world protesting for us against the violence done to us. So the Most High appears to be moving. Now, how we get reparations is the question. I mean, the scripture also says the nations are going to build up our walls. They're going to help rebuild our nation. So let's say we get reparations and we go back to, say, the wilderness of the people. They could build up, you know, say Wakanda City, let's say, right? That's a better way to put the money, in my opinion, is to, you know, build Wakanda City, you know, make us a first world nation over there, and we help build up Africa along the way with, you know, with the rest of our brothers. That might be a more efficient way of using the money because the US dollar has no real value. And I mean, gold, you know, it maintains its wealth, but it's not good for trade. So, you know, turning that money into land and machinery and resources and improving our quality of life in another nation like Africa, that would be maybe a better way of using that money. But I agree with Sister E. If it's going to happen, it'll probably be a mandate of the UN, and it'll be an initiative that blesses Israel scattered worldwide.
Sister E, is it a move of God or not?
Yeah, oh, definitely it's a move of God. And you think of all the things that have transpired, I've never seen the world support us. Never have I seen the world support us. You see all over the world where each country is doing a Black Lives Matter initiative. Now, I'm not, you know, I don't rock too much with Black Lives Matter because, you know, I believe it's other people driving it, just like the NAACP. But I do believe that this is still the hand of the Most High God that is moving the nations to have compassion for the things that they've done. Because even if you look at the blacks in the other nations, when you look at the UK and all those different countries, they didn't know about their true history until here recently. You know, my daughter was telling me about the UK, how they're unaware of, you know, their history as far as being slaves. And now they're waking up to the fact of, yeah, we were mistreated as well. So I think this is the hand of God moving, and what the nations are trying to do to make it beneficial to them is going to actually turn on them, because they think it's their will, but they don't realize that the Most High God is behind all of this. So yes, I definitely believe this is the hand of God moving.
So I'm going to share another article. We're going to discuss this article. Not enough to say sorry for slavery links. Companies that benefited from slavery must go further than apologizing, the chairman of the Caribbean Reparations Commission has said. Many British and European firms and their predecessors drank from the well of Caribbean slavery, said Professor Sir Hilary Beckles in a Reuters interview. The comments came as several financial institutions apologized for their historical links to the slave trade. He called on British firms to fund development projects in the Caribbean. Unfortunately, one cannot go back and remake the history, but you can make atonement. It is not enough to make your apology as a public spectacle. It is not enough to present it as public relations exercise, said Professor Beckles, who is Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies. The historian added that British institutions should sit down with Caribbean nations to fund development projects. Alternatively, they could consider a type of Marshall Plan, a reference to the U.S. aid given to Europe after World War II. All the institutions that created this mess really have to come and help in a practical way to clean it up, he says. The Bank of England and the Church of England have apologized for the role that some of their senior figures played in the slave trade. The Daily Telegraph, which first reported the news, said the church called its links a source of shame. The bank said it would ensure that images of former governors who were involved in the slave trade are not displayed in its buildings. Pub chain and insurance hub sorry for slave links. Pressure has been growing on companies around the world to address links to slavery and tactical racial inequality following the death of George Floyd in the U.S. last month while in police custody. Racism, the ideology used to justify slavery, is a legacy that still shapes the life chances for people of African and Caribbean heritage in the UK, said Dr. Katie Donington, a senior lecturer in history at the London South Bank University. There's an important step that firms with historical links to transatlantic slavery are now beginning to process of acknowledging the past. Slaves branded. In 2006, the church voted to apologize to the descendants of victims of the slave trade. Its missionary arm, the Society for the Propagation of the Christian Religion in Foreign Parts, inherited 3 sugar estates in the Caribbean. The plantation was run for the church by professional planners, but its profits went to the missionary group. Slaves working on the estate were branded on their chests with the word society. And now the Telegraph has reported that nearly 100 clergymen also benefited individually from slavery. While we recognize the leading role clergy and active members of the Church of England played in securing the abolition of slavery, it is a source of shame that others within the church actively perpetrated slavery and profited from it, the spokeswoman said. When slavery was abolished in 1833, the UK government raised huge amounts for compensation. However, that money was not paid to those who had been enslaved, but was given instead to slave owners for their loss of human property. Unacceptable part of history. A database compiled by the University College London shows that at least 11 former bank governors and 16 early directors either benefited from those payments or had links to the slave trade. There can be no doubt that the 18th and 19th century slave trade was an unacceptable part of English history, a bank spokeswoman said. As an institution, the Bank of England was never itself directly involved in the slave trade, but is aware of some inexcusable connections involving former governors and directors and apologizes for them. She said the bank has started a thorough review of its image collection to ensure no pictures of anyone involved in the slave trade remain on display. Pressure has been growing on companies around the world to address links to slavery and tackle racial inequality following the death of Floyd in the U.S. last month while in police custody. Video showed Floyd, who was unarmed and in handcuffs, dying after a white policeman knelt on his neck for nearly 9 minutes. On Wednesday, pub chain Green King and insurance market Lloyd's of London also apologized for their historical links to the slave trade. One of King's founders owned a number of plantations in the Caribbean, while the maritime insurance business, which centered around Lloyd's, thrived on the transatlantic slave trade. So, is it enough to say that they're sorry? Is it enough for them to take down statues? Is it enough for them to take down paintings? Personally, I don't care about statues. I don't care about paintings. I don't care about an apology. I want my check. I don't care, because guess what? If it costs you nothing, is it a true apology? Cut me my check. If you tear down a statue, does that help my people eat? Does that put us back in the standing that we should have been in? No, cut me my check. We need to all have a meme that says reparations, cut me my check. Since this hype is here, since the protests are still going on, since black folks are finally getting some attention, we all need to say, cut me my check. Okay? Apology not enough. Now, we know for a fact that the Catholic Church is the one who started this mess. Cut me my check. We know for a fact that these missionaries from many of these Protestant churches was involved in this. Cut me my check. We know some of these banks were involved in the slave trade. Cut me my check. We know for a fact the U.S. government, the British government, and many other European governments was involved, like the Dutch. Cut me my check. The same thing with the Spanish and the Portuguese. Cut me my check. I don't care if you don't have no money. I want it all. Cut me my check. What do y'all think?
Cut me my check. That's how I feel. All together. You were saying that the whole time, and I was like, yes, that's all I want to talk about. I don't want to talk about no government programs because they ain't work for us. I don't want to talk about I really don't even want to talk about taxes, free college. No. Don't trick me and think that you're going to give me some government programs that's going to help me and it's really going to hurt me. That's all we got, is just give me my check. We'd have tried everything as a community to work with some of them folks, and they still turned on us. Last part of Dr. King's legacy, that's all he was saying was, we're going to get our check. That's it. Somebody said, run me my money. That's it. Run me my money. That's all I got to say.
In the famous words of Raleigh, like Minister Teo says, Santa, pay what you owe. Go ahead, Minister Teo.
One thing we gotta, pay what you owe, Santa. Pay what you owe. But one thing we have to keep in mind, we need to make sure that Black Lives Matter does not control this thing, because that's how how they intend to control the narrative. They're gonna let Black Lives Matter be the face of this movement, and they're not representing us, and they are founded by LGBTQ people. They are not the ones to represent those who are descendants of slaves. They are not the ones. We need to make sure it's someone else. And it's the media that put them in the forefront. And we have to change that narrative first and foremost. We cannot let them be the face. We cannot let them represent us. We cannot let them speak for us.
I have a good idea. I mean, because someone says give us some land. Personally, you could keep the land here because Babylon's doomed. Now, let me go over there to Africa and survey all the prime real estate out there, and you can purchase that for me, right? I don't need paper. I think that'd be a good idea. Cut me my check, right? Use that money to buy some land, in Africa. At the same time, not only would it help us, it'd help them. Now, the other thing is, I think they should cancel all of our debt, every single debt we have, whether private or public, right? All of our debt should be canceled. I think that we shouldn't pay taxes in this country for as long as it's still surviving, right? We should not pay any more taxes ever again, or at least for the next 100 years. What do y'all think?
I think they need to, yes, definitely do that. They need to hit that student loan up first.
Yep.
Then we can discuss the taxes, because what I owe in taxes is nothing in comparison to what I owe in student loans.
Exactly.
And it seems like the more I pay on my student loans, I don't see no end to it. It's like forever debt. That's what I call it, forever debt. So the first thing I want them to do, if they finna pay us reparation, don't touch my money you finna give me. Go ahead, just erase that student loan debt and call it a day. Then cut me my check.
Yep.
Because if you take that student loan debt, realize that if they say we'll give you your check, but we got to cover your student loans, that's some people, it's not me, but it's still high. Some people, that's half of their check that they would probably get, because
fiat money is not real, right? And they know it. Notice with COVID-19, all of a sudden they're just spitting out money, giving it to people, giving them $1,200 checks. They're just writing checks, because the money has no real value, so they don't mind that. So really, the whole student loan thing was a way to put an invisible chain around our neck, and it was very successful because we were told go to college, get that loan, get it. We had no idea they created this debt system most of us can't escape, right? So that has to be one of the things. First and foremost, the student loans have to be absolved. But I would say this: if we make the mistake and stay under their rulership, we're in trouble.
Yep.
Right. We cannot. We need to be self-governing. We cannot remain under their rulership, under their laws, which is how they've controlled us for 400 years.
Yeah, and it'll be another incident like Black Wall Street. If we stayed here with that money, the minute we would get established, they're gonna do what? Bomb us. Nope. Yep. You ain't gonna get that opportunity. The thing is, this generation, I think, and my daughter's generation, we've learned from our mistakes. We've seen the things that they've done in the past, and it's like, no, you're not gonna come and bomb my neighborhood. Send me on to Wakanda. So, because by the time you get there, we've established enough to the point that if you come, we coming with that heat too. So, I don't want to be here, because I already know what they're gonna do. They're gonna probably put some in our water system.
Yep.
Or something. They ain't gonna let us go quietly. No, they're gonna give us that money and try to take us out as fast as possible. So yeah,
and that's a good point. I mean, we still would end up being under their laws. So then they want to push mandatory vaccinations, and they keep saying, oh, you know what? We're going to vaccinate the Africans first. Oh, you know what? We're going to vaccinate the blacks first, because we care about them so much. We care about them so much that just like Tuskegee, we're going to give them a shot. Right? I mean, I'm like, come on. Well, with Tuskegee, they didn't give them a shot, and they just died because they didn't get the, antibiotics. But anyway, they want to shoot us up with these drugs, these poisons, right? So if we got all this wealth, we'd end up giving it to them anyway, because they're going to kill us all. The bottom line is we got to get the heck out of Dodge. I know for me, you cut me my check, I'm out. I'm out tomorrow. No ifs, ands, no pause, pass, go. Your Cobra's gone.
The funny thing is, we'll be, as soon as you get that check, I'll be like, where's your Cobra? You'll already be on a plane. I'd be like, you could have waited for us, bro. But
my brother be barely hanging on to me. Where did he go? He's gone.
You're right, though, because
all they saw was dust.
Man, because as soon as they cut that check, while they're writing their check, they're gonna be coming up with some plan. Like, we ain't gonna even give y'all a chance.
Even the scripture shows that when in Revelation 12, when we're leaving, the dragon's gonna try to stop us. And God's gonna open up the earth to swallow them up. So
we can't be under the unjust laws. I mean, that would be a huge mistake. But I would be gone.
Yeah. So, Minister Tail, if you want to send out that email to the Patreon members, I'll post that in the Patreon that they can join the discussion. So, Sister E, what country you going to when we get our check?
Man, you know what? I was looking at that little island. Don't y'all know the history behind St. Thomas?
Oh, we know about Sao Tome.
Sao Tome, they couldn't come over there. That's not why they sent us over there, because it's something in the environment. They said they would send the individuals that were non-melanated over there, that they would just drop dead.
Yeah.
Man, I'm going over there because if you come over here, you walk in.
Well, they still had a plantation over there growing sugar cane, and so what they end up doing is basically having a lot of mulattoes running and managing their own people, you know. So, Karis, my man, how's it going? How's it going?
Man, I'm going somewhere where they can't. Karis, what's up? But yeah, I'm going somewhere where they can't step foot. I need that assurity that if you step foot in this section I live in, you're gonna drop dead right on the spot. That's all I need. Because I don't trust none of them.
Yeah. You know, there's a bunch of places like Cape Verde, a bunch of our people there, you know, a lot of them came straight from Portugal and Spain to Cape Verde, all over the place. See, our history needs to be known, right? Our people don't know the true history of our captivity. And not only that, but that we went into Mexico. The Inquisition went all the way into Mexico, enslaving our people. You know, I mean, everything they've done was lied to us, right? Now we're waking up and now we want our check. Karis.
Definitely.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Happy Juneteenth. So
Happy Juneteenth.
Happy Juneteenth, Karis.
I didn't know anything about Juneteenth until President Trump said something about it. So, you know.
Well,
he make it sound like he founded Juneteenth, right?
So
that dude crazy.
I'll stop from there. But just a couple of fun facts. Yeah. So when we did have this COVID-19 stimulus package or the payment protection, it didn't get funded or fielded through Congress very long. It took like 4 or 5 days. But that just goes to show you that there's trillions of dollars, quote unquote, trillions of dollars that the United States has access to. And I don't know if you all had seen the article recently. Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, he had said that their power for providing funding was limitless, which just means to show you that the wealth is just a formula. So there's nothing behind it. It's not a tangible behind it. But I wanted to kind of share this with you. I didn't get a chance to read the scripture, but it was showing that that when the Israelites had captured all the wealth from the nations that they had destroyed, the Most High had told them to pass all that wealth into the fire. Anything that could pass into the fire, basically anything that could get burned off, that was acceptable for the Israelites. So 2 things that's there. Number 1, it's something that's tangible, that's strong. And then number 2, when you're passing stuff through the fire, it's killing off any type of diseases or any other viruses or things that's attached to it. So that was kind of something that Sister E had mentioned. So just kind of your thoughts on that.
So some people saying, you know, take the money and turn it into gold. I don't know if there's enough gold on, you know, that exists for us to convert to gold. What do you all think about that?
there's other things you can give me. You ain't got to give me gold. You got diamonds. You got silver. We ain't got to hog all the gold. No, we're not being. I don't want people to say we're just being greedy. No, we're not. What we're saying is this: it's time out allowing the colonizers to own something that's not theirs. You know, their sole intent when they were, and I think their sole intent of depopulating Africa through the transatlantic slave trade was to be able to get a hold to that wealth, because they knew that if it was heavily populated the way it was, they would have had a fight on their hands. So they depopulated it first, then said, let's take it over. So guess what? When they depopulated that area, guess what? Some of us own some of that stuff. You know, some of us own some of the land and some of the you know, the minerals or whatnot. You have to depopulate it. You're going to get the ones that own it first. then go for the other people. So I think a lot of us, our ancestors, own things over there. So yeah, I don't have to just have gold. There's other minerals out there we can have.
That's a good point. Mr. Hebrew, how's it going? Hebrew
Oh,
me.
pretty good. Pretty good. I just got the link about maybe 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, we just sent it out.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, when it comes to that gold, the one thing I've noticed, just upon reading the word, I noticed that gold and silver is what's going to be used during the millennial, and it seems like for an eternity. So we do know that those are enduring minerals. They're going to always be used, and it's going to pretty much be the world, quote unquote, currency. It definitely won't be the dollar. It won't be the yuan. So, yeah, I don't see why that would be a bad idea, actually.
So one of the things I think we need to do is we have to find leaders, right? Because they can't appoint us leaders, because we know whoever they appoint isn't going to be good for us, right? That's probably the first thing we need to do, is someone to represent the diaspora in America, not the entire diaspora. Each region should have their own representatives, but maybe we ought to come together, do some kind of nonprofit or NGO, and appoint someone who is godly led to represent our interests, because we don't need any more NAACP. We don't need any more Congressional Black Caucus.
Absolutely
We don't
not.
need none of that.
Maybe Dr. Claude Anderson.
Dr. Claude is good. Dr. Chiambori Ko, I like her. Even though she's from Africa, but she's here. She lives in the States. I wouldn't mind her. Someone who's conscious.
I love her spirit. I don't care what nobody say. I love Dr. Africana's spirit. And she seems like she is 100% for her nation. But I love her spirit. I vote for her. I'd be like, yep, she running things over here.
So, Mr. Hebrew, me, and Karis,
Yeah.
Is it a God move, what we're seeing today?
I'm going to tell you this, in our last conversation, I know that there were people that was bringing up the Illuminati, and I'm not into this, praising the Illuminati. I'm looking at everything, and I'm looking at the fact that this is the end of 400 years, and those monuments coming down, I don't think that any Black person ought to be upset about those Confederacy monuments coming down. Because, some people that's got children, they walk past those monuments, and sometimes the children are, going to ask the father or the mother, hey, what's that? And then what's the father and mother going to say? So those monuments, they represent Babylon. So to me, I'm looking at these judgments, Minister Teal, and to me, I don't care if it is the Illuminati. I'm looking at it as the judgment of the Most High to the daughter of Babylon. These things are coming down. So everything, to me, as I'm looking, everything just seems to be coming together. These judgments are happening. And I was thinking about this today. A year from now, we ain't gonna recognize this world. I don't mean just this country, this world. I'm thinking there's gonna be some changes that's happening all around.
And that's interesting you said that, because I thought about the story in the Apocrypha about Abraham and his father Terah, and how God would make his gods that he created out of stone fall down and break, and he thought that Abraham broke it. Could it be that God is behind tearing down their idols, which is their founding fathers and the images of their founding fathers? It's real interesting.
Yeah, because even if the Illuminati is trying to start a race war, the Most High takes the wise in their own conceits and changes it. The Most High's hand would still be in it. If his goal is to bring us out of these nations, he knows how to use this and bring us out of the nations. So absolutely. Yeah, no doubt.
Let me give you kind of like a little 3-minute anecdote. Okay, so I live here in Tampa. Okay. And when I go to visit my dad, he lives over in the Cocoa Beach, Melbourne area. And so Cocoa Beach, Melbourne, that's Port Canaveral. That's where all the cruise ships are on at. So if you want to do a Disney cruise ship, Norwegian, Carnival, those are all the major cruise ships. I also want to let you know that during this time, ever since March 20th, the amount of airline carriers, I think they said for worldwide, have been reduced down to like a crazy number of like 10 to 15%. Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
International travel. And then there was a graphic the other day that actually showed the travel from the time in April and then the time in 2019 and April 2020. And I was kind of shocked because I know in April 2020 I was actually going through traveling during that time and going in the flights going into Paris, the flights going into London are drastic. So that means right now you have a lot of airline carriers that aren't filling their seats. And remember, they were asking about getting $50 billion in a bailout because of their business being taken down by COVID. So at the same time, going back to where my dad was on at, I took my kids to kind of a little semi-private beach over in just a little south of Cocoa, and you can see the cruise ships just sitting on out there. And so, see, the thing is, I don't know if anybody knows about maritime law and things of that nature. Every time you dock a cruise ship in the United States, that's going to be a port call or a port fee. And those port fees are expensive, especially if you don't have any type of patrons on the boats. Okay, you have to have those folks there paying their $3,000 to $4,000, just depends on who you're traveling on average. And this is the prime time of them being able to get on out before hurricane season. So if you think about the amount of just commercial transportation, the amount of military transportation, the amount of commercial ships and the cruise line, believe it or not, for our quote unquote, 50 to 60 million people, we would probably be able to get ferried to where we needed to go within the world because the logistical capacity is available. See, think about this. 4 months ago, the logistical capacity wasn't there. Just think about that. So, I mean, we get caught up in terms of the sickness of COVID and how everything gets moved around. Remember, ships are still ships.
Right.
Planes are still planes. So they're just sitting there. And I think the biggest graphic that I had was about 3 weeks ago. I was driving through Orlando, Florida. And if anybody knows kind of Central Florida, Orlando, Florida on I-4 is always like one of the busiest corridors in all Florida. And I went there at about 10:30 in the morning with my kids, and I had to wake my kids up and I had to say, look, there's nobody out here. The planes at Orlando International, I think I only saw one plane land in 30 minutes of driving by that area. That's unheard of. It's unheard of. But that's kind of the things that we don't really see because, we're just kind of seeing all the other effects, but we're not looking at, okay, logistically, it threw a monkey wrench. But if you think about it, because of, like, number one, I'm praying that we get reparations. I really am. But I know that the moment that we get reparations, we will have to leave. It will literally be like, get your deposit, audit your claim, and then you're flying on with your gold in your suitcase, one of those types of things. Because if we stay here, you got to remember, these folks do not want to separate from their God. Their God. No. Okay? The moment that they started seeing their statues, which are their idols, the moment that they started seeing their idols, their gods, their quote unquote smaller gods coming down, do you understand? They actually came on out with an armed response. They came on out with an armed response. They started shooting people. But we already knew that they were going to start shooting people. But see, it's a different era because back in the 60s and back in the 70s, it was, nonviolent. In this era, it's like, well, I got a gun and I got my my AR, my semi-automatic, and I'm not the only one. There's plenty of black folks that have their weapons, and especially if you're prior service, you're gonna have all your weapons. You're gonna know where you're gonna move at. You're not gonna try and create any type of problems. But we're now hypersensitive to everything that's happening, that we aren't just looking at, okay, if I need to run an errand here, it's if I run an errand, where's going to be my exit points? Who am I going to have to take on out? Who am I going to have to grip on up? That's one of those things. And I'm telling you, listen, like Peter said, you need to get your swords. Get a sword.
Those are some good points you're making. I mean, with what happened with COVID, the logistics are now there for us to relocate everybody who wants to be relocated. And as you said, and Sister E stated in the beginning, if we do, and I'm going to say when we get reparations, those people are going to try to kill us. I mean, they're literally going to come and try to take what we have like they've always done. So that's literally a fact that they would. If you think about the way the world is right now, they would kill us if we got reparations.
Right.
Because they'd be like, "You're not taking what my grandfathers, created for me. You N-word people."
Well, yeah, they will feel violated. That's how they will respond to it. Not that they owe a debt, but they're gonna feel like things are being taken from them. They're going to feel like their inheritance, which is Babylon, their inheritance is in danger. Everything that their so-called forefathers built is going away. You're taking it illegally, and they're going to come at you. That's just how they think. If you just look at their history, it won't take less than an hour after you got your reparations. They're going to be on the street. That's how emotional they are about this.
But the Native Americans and the Asians, they got their reparations. There are no issues with that.
Exactly. But I mean, hey, we can't even go to the store and not be harassed. Well,
that's true.
We can't sell ice on the corner and drinks on the corners without being harassed. Look,
it's always us. I mean, if the Chinese do something, it's going to be our fault.
Yes,
it's always turned toward us.
Almost sound like we the children of Israel, tribe of Judah.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I literally heard one guy, he was saying that we're hanging ourselves on trees to force a race war. Can you believe that?
Oh my goodness.
I'm like, come on. We're literally hanging ourselves on trees to start a race war.
Let me tell you, with that, we understand. See, what the problem is, a lot of people don't realize you don't have that much originality. Okay? Let me just kind of break this thing on down to you. There has been a blueprint that has been established that our white community goes by. Okay? And those blueprints, they don't change. They don't get upgraded. It doesn't get innovated. It still remains the same because they realize if it worked back 60 years ago, then it will work again today. So for them to institute that blueprint, they're trying to say, well, we are instituting the blueprint for all the other white folks, because it's just the dog whistles. It's an empowerment. Oh, okay, we can hang them and see they're just going to succumb to the power because that's the same instruments that we used 60 years ago. The problem, like if you saw that interview with the one sheriff there in Kern County, the problem is when he tried to say it was, looks like it was self-inflicted suicide, and then you had all the black folks on in there, screaming at him, yelling at him, he got shocked because it was what I'm saying isn't true, or they're calling it on out. The white is right framework isn't working because Here's the thing, just like what you all had mentioned earlier, you have paid agents. You have paid agents. We've seen it all throughout. You know, who's going to shuck and jive? Who's going to get their butter biscuit? Because why? You know, it's relatively stable, so I'm just going to shuck and jive. Now those folks that had been shucking and jiving, they know it's not stable anymore because their shucking and jiving days isn't panning out. They're not seeing the residual return that they thought that they were promised for making massa feel good. So right now, you have all these dynamics at play that they're going to continue to lie, but you're going to continue to see bodies. But it's going to be up to us to continue to tell our friends and our family, listen, you have to be vigilant because they are coming for you.
Mm-hmm.
So when people say, oh, it's the time of Jacob's trouble, you know, it's always the Eurocentric Christians. They're not going for white people. No white people has really been harmed in any of this.
So that's the question. Who are they going for other than us, right? I don't see any other race being targeted. I mean, am I missing something? Because I'm seeing only the Negro, who they call Negroes, who they call blacks, who they call African Americans. What is so special about us? It's because we're Israel. We know that. But I wonder what they think. What do they think? You know? Sister E, any comment?
I'm sorry, I had stepped away. So you said, why are the Negroes attacked?
Yeah, why is it only us, right? I mean, you and I know why, but what do they think? You know what I'm saying? What is in their minds?
I think it's just I call it ancient hate. It's a hate that's rooted beyond what we can figure out. They don't even know why they hate us, I think. I think it's an ancient hate that has been put in their heart by Hasatan. Being honest, because Hasatan wants us out the most. Satan wants us out the most because we are a problem. So that's my thoughts. It's an ancient hate that goes beyond us, and I think it's implanted by Satan or Hasatan.
Yeah, it's a spirit because you go all the way back to Rome. You go all the way back to Greece. You go all the way back to the Edomites. You see that we have always been enslaved and mistreated by the very same nation of people, mainly Europe. So you see them coming over into Africa. So, you know, we were in Portugal at one point. We was in Spain at one point, the tribe of Judah. And then we're over there in the kingdom of Judah. They know who we are. They purposely target us to bring us. And now here's what this is one thing that I'm thinking. You know, the King James Version came out in 1611. They're in Europe. Those rascals read that. And they saw some of this that happened in the King James Version. And they said, I'm going to go over there and do that. And that's the Most High taking the wise in their own craftiness. But they come over there to the kingdom of Judah, where we were, and they decide to bring us over here and put us in shackles and chains and cause us to work for them and to be oppressed and afflicted for 400 years. But like Sister E said, this is an ancient thing. It's a spirit. It's an evil spirit. It's Hasatan. He's behind the whole thing because he knows who we are. So what he's trying to do, just like what did he try to do with King Herod and the babies? He tried to kill them all. And we see a lot of these same things just happening over and over again because we're the tribe of Judah, but also, you know, the children of Israel. We see the persecution, and it's not going to stop until the Most High, until Yahusha comes and until he delivers us. And that's what we're looking for. But yes, indeed, it's definitely a blueprint of Satan.
So like the church ladies say, now that'll tell you my age, could it be Satan?
Yeah.
Right. And so that's a fact, right? We know for a fact that the true enemy, like the scripture says, is Satan. We fight not against flesh and blood, but principalities and powers and wickedness in heavenly places. Thank you, Brother Jim Miller, for that gift. So the thing that we see right now is that the devils are going wild. I saw a video this morning of this white woman saying, see, y'all causing all this looting, tearing up all our places, and we gave y'all freedom. We could have left y'all as slaves, and we could put y'all back into slavery and blah, 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 blah. Well, first, she can't do that, right? She could try, but that's not going to happen. But you know, she act like they did us a favor by letting us go, which they really didn't. They just changed the manner of change. Instead of physical change, they put a system in place to keep us enslaved, right? And giving us a little bit more leeway. So instead of being able to go 10 feet, now we could go 1,000 feet, with these electronic chains. But they keep us down in these, for the longest, they kept us down in the ghettos, right? We couldn't even get out of the ghettos. And then they start moving everything around. And so then they started dealing with the quote unquote sellout side of our people, the ones who like to eat butter biscuits, and had them manipulate us, right? And misdirect and put them up. And so long as you could keep the rest of them under control. And Margaret Sanger, she was saying, we're going to use the pastors to help us, convince them to get abortions. So I'm like, this conspiracy has been going on forever. It continues. And yet we still have people who are of Israelite lineage who have no idea why all these things are happening. They have a desire in their heart to run to Africa, and they're running to Africa. And yes, but you don't understand why that desire is there. Right. Why that desire now? Why wasn't that desire there 10 years ago? Because it is time for our exodus.
Right.
So, let me just kind of throw some points on in there. See, a lot of white folks, they don't even really understand the history, and they don't really understand the fine points of the history, because the indoctrination is really in the elementary school. They'll sing, this land is your land, this land is my land. They'll do all the superficial things, but they never really want to drill down into the meat. I mean, you talk to most people are thinking, oh, the Civil War is about Black people getting their freedom. But then you actually tell them what the Civil War was really about, and it was about white people that had moved up to the north, getting off those boats, thinking that they were going to, quote unquote, participate in the American dream. And then they realized that the barrier of entry was extremely costly, because you had a Black person doing specialized jobs and specialized labors and skills at a cost of zero. While this person may have come from England, had done all the training, now he needs to pay back his schooling and his training because of his trip here to the US. And he's met with an unfortunate, if this guy's going for free, I'm not going to beat that. So those little nuances is what causes people to fight. You got to remember, what causes them to fight is a little different than what causes us to fight. There's motivational factors that lead to war. What I like to tell people, okay, this is what you're actually seeing happening. You're seeing, and Trump actually diagrammed this, you're seeing a civil discord, civil disobedience. When civil disobedience happens and nothing gets resolved, because it does take the government to respond to that, and they clearly haven't, and they will not, then you're going to start seeing other armed actions. Then those armed actions will start becoming a militaristic insurgency. Then from militaristic insurgency, then you will have a civil war. So we're literally like on level 0 of processes affecting this. And by the way, every single time the US fights in a war, there's always a level of a financial insecurity aspect. All right. So getting back to that, see, when we were in the Civil War was, okay, we can change something. We didn't know what we wanted to change. We're just trying to get up on out of chattel slavery. Then when we did get out of chattel slavery, we made sure that we actually came together in pockets, because guess what? Nobody else wanted us. We weren't going to integrate. into those communities because we already knew what our fate was. But when we basically promulgated within ourselves and we came together, we actually built up. And there was a one video I was watching. This brother put it together, but he was talking about the many other communities other than Greenwood that was in the United States. And I mean, there were dozens and dozens of Black people having Black dollars matriculating within our cities. And then that caused the natural reaction that, oh, well, look at them, look what they have. Well, they're uppity. Look at this, look at that. So then they destroyed what we tried to create, and actually what we did create and what we built and what was successful. I don't think a lot of people understand that we were successful when we continued to have success because we as a people, we don't serve mammon like that. Okay? We don't. That's not our biggest thing. I mean, right now, maybe in the last 20, 30 years, because of how they pushed on consumerism and all this other stuff, but naturally, we're not really that big in terms of, I got to get the almighty dollar. We just know that if we're going to be bettering ourselves, then we're going to naturally have more resources. Because why? We already know that the Most High does what? He blesses the works of our hands. So see, when they were working and they were working independently without anybody else, they were being blessed. The rest of the United States was going through an economic, they called it, what do they call it? The reconstruction period. And they'll tell you that reconstruction period, it messed them up for white folks, not necessarily.
Yeah, so Karis, let's see what Sheikah has to say. We got a new addition here. Oh, is she gone? Okay. Well, let's add Brother Robert then. Brother Robert.
Shalom. Can you hear me?
How's it going?
Going great. How you doing?
Bless. What
yes.
do you think? What do you think of all this from the Gentile perspective? What do you think about this whole move? The reparations and what looks like is driving, this whole discussion.
Well, I'm very public and vocal about my opinion on reparations. I'm, of course, a strong supporter of it. I want to see Yah's people redeemed, as soon as possible. Of course, in my lifetime, but hopefully, I feel like it's right around the corner. I really do feel it in my spirit too, and I know I share this feeling with a lot of people. I see it in the comments, but I even made a video about this, and it's basically, I think right now the whole world is listening. And I'm 100% in agreement with you guys that Black Lives Matter should not lead the movement at all, because that's not actually Israel that's driving that movement. But on the same token, the world is listening, and there should be a unified message. And it seems like right now the unified message is stop killing us. And there's a lot of which is that's great, but no, cut the check, like you guys say, cut our. And I don't want to check, but cut Israel their check. I want to go with Israel, but I'm hoping I have a ticket, to get out of here too. But I'm definitely supporting on cut the check, and that should be the unified message. And I do believe that Black Lives Matter is probably there to try to circumvent and usurp that message. That Israel needs to stand up and take a hold of this movement for sure. And the unified message should definitely be cut to check while the world is listening, because this is the first time, I think, in history, but definitely in our lifetimes, like you said, Brother Yacoba, that the world is listening the way they are. I mean, these corporations are changing, their offensive symbols and images and whatnot and whatever. I know that's just shallow, trying to appease and keep the money flowing, but that's not I think what anybody even cares about at this point. It's cut the check.
Let me ask you a question, Brother Robert. So how come we don't see more of the Gentile believers of who Israel is speaking up? I mean, we got Dana Stevens, we have you, and one or two others. But I know for a fact, because I get people who send me emails who are Gentiles who know who we are and they support us, but they don't speak.
They're
What do you think?
quiet.
Yeah, they're quiet.
Yeah, they're like lurkers. I see them sometimes in the comments. You know, they'll respond to some of the comments that I make on your channel and other channels. And but yeah, they don't speak. You go to their channel, it's completely empty. You know, I just actually started on YouTube myself. So you know, I was maybe quiet just because I was coming into the awakening, but I was still, as I was awakening, I was speaking to other people who I thought was thinking the same way. But now I'm just all out. Hey, pay the reparations. This is Yah's people. And I actually had an argument online. I think it was yesterday, the day before. I was in a debate with some other, I'll say, ignorant Gentiles that put a pretty offensive post. It was, you know, how on Facebook you might be quote unquote friends with people that you haven't talked to in 20 years. And, you know, they looked you up from high school or something. And nowadays you're starting to see people's true colors because you see what side of this fight they're on, what side of history they're going to be on, which is the wrong side, some of them, most of them. But, you know, I saw some I thought was an offensive post, and then basically saying, I don't even remember, but it was just anti this movement, you know, and somebody that I knew said, oh, well, and I'll just summarize here, but basically saying, when can they just get over it? You know, that there was an atrocity, and yes, whatever happened in history, but you know, basically get over it. I didn't say those words, but it was just basically like, when can you finally just forget about it? And then one of the comments was, good thing the Jews got over thousands of years of slavery and persecution pretty quickly, and so that comment, of course, it triggered me, so I started the debate. I was like, well, the irony of your statement is that the descendants of slaves are the Jews from the Bible, and the modern day quote unquote Jews are not the Jews from the Bible. So that, of course, started a whole debate. They started, you know, of course, I was quoting the scriptures that are the obvious, you know, Deuteronomy 28:68. I quoted, of course, the Genesis and Acts where it mentions the 400-year prophecy. And
So
of course,
let me-
Gentiles. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so let me ask you this. So do they not understand that what they're seeing is beyond anything that has ever happened before, and that obviously this is judgment of some sort? Do they not understand that, you know, that their power, their supremacy is at an end, that God's judgment is coming upon this nation on them? I mean, I've tried my best to warn the Gentile nations, and very few want to listen, right? I'm trying to help them out, and I'm like, but y'all don't see what's happening. And it's like, you know, we're preparing our way out, right? Israel preparing to leave, and as you know, you want to come with us, and I believe you will, but most of them, I mean, you know what the scripture says now, Robert. I'm like, they don't understand what's happening. They should be on the right team, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and it's like I've seen, you know, some posts. They're saying, well, you know, this is the hardening of Pharaoh's heart, and that's what I'm seeing, that their hearts are being hardened as a nation, right? And how do you feel about that? Because I'm sure many of your friends and family, they don't know who we are and they don't accept it. And many of them might get caught up in what's coming.
That's exactly what I think is happening as well. And, you know, I do my part because I know I can't quote exactly what scripture, but we have a responsibility to bring people to the kingdom. And if they refuse, that's now their judgment will be on them. But if we don't even try to bring this to win souls, then those ones that we didn't try for, their judgment is on us. I forget what Ezekiel. Ezekiel. Okay, so I try my hardest still, and you know, I get ridiculed and laughed at, and but I, you know, maybe out of 100 people, maybe 97 of them ridicule me, but maybe there's those 3 that actually look into it, or I can win over. And to me, all the ridicule in the world's worth it for those even one person that I can bring in. So yeah, I think that their hearts are hardened. I think that they just don't love the truth. They don't have an open. A lot of it's generational. Like if I were to just go with my family's traditions and beliefs, I'd be there too. I had to go against them, and some people, and it was hard. Trust me, this awakening, for just like I'm sure for some Israelites by DNA, it was hard too. And for me, it was like, you know, I have to go against my family's traditions, and I try to tell them, and I'm just like the black sheep of the family now, and I can't, you know, I'm not gonna, I don't participate in the Christmas tree gathering and, you know, exchanging gifts, and I don't do any of these Egyptian Saturnalia and Ishtar holidays anymore. And so I think, you know, they would have to go against their family, and that's just a hard thing to do if you don't completely just surrender your faith and to the word, you know. And that's exactly what I did.
So I'm gonna share a video, a trailer that Sister E shared with me. It's a movie that's coming out.
A show, yeah.
Huh?
Yes, a show. Yeah.
It's a show coming out. All right. All right. Let's do this.
Hey, how's it going? Why don't you step out? Take that shit off your head, monkey!
Sure, that black monkey would fuck you are!
Fuck you, Mother Earth. Make sure I get my nut. And if she bleeds gold, they should crown me King Tut. Nat King Cole, King Solomon, he is nuts. Patricia fucking oil, you get rich when I bust. Fucking Mother Earth. I'm starting to get dizzy. I made that bitch squirt and created the Mississippi River. My nigga took a trip.
What you looking at, Cracka?
What's your name, Cracka? Michael. What you know, man? I'm going to. Where I come from, this isn't the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, you are, Cracka.
Welcome back. Be cool.
I'm going to.
Wow. That's what I said when I saw it. That's why I got quiet for a second, because I was watching it. Wow.
And there's going to be so many Gentiles that'll take offense to that. And it's like, well, that's exactly what Israel's been going through for 400 years, you know? So it's like, what do you expect them to think? That's
well, see, that's the thing, right? You can't sympathize with the people you're persecuting, right? And so you're going to continue to persecute them. So, you know, if you show this particular variation of a story, then, you know, people are going to flip it and say, we're racist because we showed that trailer. Now, whoever made the movie, whoever made that is trying to tell a story, trying to show an image of what if. Now, I saw this particular video, and it's like probably no more than like 5 minutes. It was well done. I shared it with Sister E and Dante and Minister Teo. And it was similar to this. It was about a black guy, and he went into a store, and these white guys followed him in. And, you know, but it starts off the story with the white guy training his white son to shoot guns. And, you know, the image was that he's shooting at black folks. So what happened was they went into the store, and the kid was looking at the black guy, and the black guy was like waving at the kid. And the white guy, like, you know, N-word, what are you doing looking at my son? What you want? You know, and, you know, the guy said, you got a problem? And the black guy said, you're the problem. So what happened is when the black guy went outside the store, he called his friend on the phone, and, you know, he met him at the car, and they beat the black guy up. So the white guy and his son, they're traveling back home. And when he was traveling back home, there was a van in the road, and the road, you know, blocked him from continuing. So he like, you know, what's going on, you know? And so a bunch of black folks get out of the car, grab him, throw him into the truck. And they take him to this place, and, you know, they start tattooing on him. And so then later on, you see that they take the guy, they throw him out on the street near his home, and he's all tattooed up black, right? And when he went into his house, his wife was like, what are you doing here? Get out of here. I'm going to shoot you. I'm going to shoot you, because he looked black. He was tattooed up black. And then she realized it was her husband. And so she put the gun down. But then you hear a boom, right? And that was his little son who shot him in the back because he thought he was shooting a black guy. So once again, some of these stories are powerful and they need to be told regardless of how, you might feel about it and how it might affect, the people who the message is towards, because I believe everybody needs to be able to sympathize with others. And I've always felt that if you're treating someone wrong because you have more money, you're the dominant class, do you think that God would be happy with that? Even if we weren't Israel, do you think God would be happy with you doing what you've done to a group of people, being unjust to a group of people, persecuting a group of people, the God that you say you serve? Because, when we look at history, many of the people who hung our ancestors from trees were just either coming from church or going into church. What are y'all thoughts on that? Minister Tail.
Well, I think they never served the one true God. That's what I think. This is why they could do what they do. I mean, they are raised under the traditions of the Catholic Church, which is a pagan pseudo-Christian organization that worships idols and man, and you have a pope that has the so-called power to forgive sin, right? So they just gave themselves everything according, that belongs to God. They made themselves a God, and these people, for the most part, have been serving this Catholic Jesus, this white Jesus, and that white Jesus allows you to do those things to God's true chosen people, right? This is why they have no guilt. They have no guilt for killing us. There is no remorse. There's no ability to empathize. They can't even see that they're going to be judged. I mean, it's obvious, right? The Father is always with the downtrodden, oppressed. They can't see it. They thank him for being, that they're blessed and financial. Like that pastor, right? That pastor said that slavery was a blessing, right? Because they got all this power. They got all this wealth. They got all of this money and became the most powerful nation in the world, not knowing they are Mystery Babylon, right?
100%.
Killing millions of people worldwide to build this empire, but they are a godly nation. They can't see, right? Kill the Indians, killed hundreds of millions of Hebrew Israelites during the Atlantic slave trade, killed thousands and thousands of Vietnamese, Koreans just to build this empire and take over the world. And they can't even see it. And they think they're God's children. Well, you're not serving the biblical God, not the one that's in that Bible. They use that Bible, but they use it to absolve so that they can sleep at night. What's that that video with Joe Martin, right? You stab us in the back, put the knife in our hand, and tell us it's our fault. It's totally two different gods, and they used our own Bible against us. But the Most High was always with the downtrodden, always with the low, right? The tail, right? They're in some deep trouble. I hope some of them have the ability to repent, because the evil that they do is like a vampire lusting for blood. It's just unreal.
I think you're 100% on point there. Yes, if even if Israel wasn't Israel, even if the descendants of slaves weren't Israel, this is still what was done to them is still completely against Yah's word, and I think there would be judgment even if not. But we all know that it's coming because it is. Because Israel is because the Negroes are Israel.
But you know what? When you look at it, there is a scripture. I can't think of it off the top of my head. I was sitting here trying to look it up. But it talks about how, God did put judgment on on Israel, but he's going to judge the other nations because they did too much. It's like they went too far. So the Most High God saw that they were about to go too far because it was prophetic. And it was in the word of God that he said, y'all did what y'all did because I needed to judge them, but y'all did too much to them. So, I mean, God saw what was going to happen before it happened.
If I can go back to that video. All right, so first of all, for that video to even have made production to we could see what was going on in that, I think that's amazing. Second of all, that for us as a people group, that's not us. And I think that's hard for Gentiles to understand, that we'll get mad, but we don't take that anger to the grave like they will do. You see what I'm saying? Like I've had in my family stories where my forefathers had land, got ran off, had property, got land off, had been ran off, all sorts of ills and things of that nature. But I'm not going to go in my mind, in my carnality, run down. I'm going to go into the census. I'm going to look at the county libraries. I'm going to look at all the archival evidence, and I'm going to get mine. That's generally, we don't really do that. But I'm going to tell you, because as I just looked at this, there was a white guy in Alabama. I think this article had just recently come on out, and he was trying to sue the state of Alabama because the plantation that his ancestors had the slaves in was converted into a prison shortly after after the Civil War. And so he was trying to sue Alabama for losses on the property. So number one, I don't agree with that at all. But number two, that just kind of shows that the vanity, I would say, of that nature that, I still got to get something. I still have to have something. I look at it like this. If we are wrong, we really, at the extreme, we don't really take those actions into our own hands unless quote unquote, unless it's like imminent danger, like somebody is coming through our door, waving the gun and things of that nature. But in terms of, past historic wrongs, we just want to have our recompense, and then we just want to leave and not have to worry about them, And it's crazy because it's like they're worried that we're worried about them and we're not. It's just, I don't know.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, we just pretty much want to be left alone and allowed to live. We don't have this idea of vengeance or bloodlust like they have. It's not in us. I guess some would say to our detriment, we're forgiving people, but it's the nature in us. We're just not that way. We're not a hostile people. We're more attracted to gentleness and love, right? But like you said, I mean, if you're kicking down our door, if you're threatening our family, then we're going to take action. But other than that, we don't hold a grudge like that.
Well, let's ask a question to yourself, right? I mean, just everybody, let's ask ourselves a question, right? If you're going against the people, right, and you're hanging their people from trees, you're killing their sons in parks, they don't even have peace in their own homes. They cannot go into their own homes and live. You go into their house and kill them. I'm like, it's like the normal person. If it was the reverse, we know what would happen. There'd be civil war. But yet we haven't done anything yet, right? That tells you what kind of people we are. But then they'll be the first ones to say we're racist because we're telling you what you're doing to us, right? Now, I'm gonna play a video, and some people are gonna call me racist for it, but it doesn't apply. If it doesn't apply to you, then it doesn't apply to you, right? But my point being is we need to be able to accept criticism and accept reality, because it's obvious that our people are being murdered on a large scale basis. And it has always been a system of genocide against us. So I'm going to play this little clip, and it's always poetic. I think it's a poetic clip, right? And many of you probably saw it already, but let's look at it.
Contribute, say something.
You want me to say something? Fine. I'll say something. You people. You're not a race. You are a virus. You destroy the world. Everything beautiful you poison. You drag us from our homes. You rape our daughters, murder our sons. You crack our spines and do all you can to break our will. You stab us. Then you put the knife in our hand and tell us it's our fault. And if you don't do it yourself, you stand by, close your eyes, and pretend there's nothing wrong. And then you pray to your God to silence our screams so that you can enjoy the happiness that we built for you with our blood. But it's not your fault. It's the only way you know how to be. And the only thing that will change anything is if another virus comes along and does to you what you do to us. And I hope that happens very soon.
Wow. This evening obviously hasn't gone as I'd hoped. And I think I'm having a full-on panic attack right now. So I'm going to go to the bathroom and get myself together. And when I come back, I hope you don't see me as the devil.
Well, you know, family, I think it's poetic. I think it tells the struggle that our people have gone through over the years. And the way it was so eloquently stated, you know, says a lot, right? You put the knife in our hands and tell us it's our fault. What about black on black crime? Well, we're not talking about black on black crime. We're talking about you breaking into my house and killing me. We're talking about you hanging us from trees. We're talking about you shooting us on the road. We're talking about you murdering us. But you put the knife in our hands and tell us it's our fault. Any comments? I know people gonna say, well, Tail, are you being racist? No, I'm not. I'm talking facts. You know, Tail, we're about truth. And if the truth hurts, I'm sorry.
And again, it goes back into what, you know, when me and, you know, Jacobo, when we were on Baren's panel on last Saturday. And the one thing that I think me and you both have discussed, along with Tayo and Dante, that the issue is not the people, it's the system. The system is what the problem is. Now, if they choose to follow their system, they're going to have to deal with the curses behind it. I mean, and let's be real with it. That's why it says that they'll be sold to the children of the Sabians. If you fall up under that, because people got to realize that white supremacy, the system, you can be white, black, Asian, whatever color. When you fall up under the window of that system, you're going to have to deal with the repercussions of following that system. So it's going to be payment to the system itself. Because when we call the system out, we're called racist. No, we're calling you out for your racism. And see what they want us to do to say, okay, kumbaya, we forgive you, all over with. We ain't got nothing to do with it. But you still have to deal with the repercussions of what you did. Just like the the writing that Thomas Jefferson did that state that, you know, he mourns for what's going to happen to his people, because you can't do this much evil and not have to deal with the repercussions of what you've done.
So, Sister E, what did he say? He said, if God is a just God,
oh yes,
right, he fears what God is going to do to his people. If God is a just God, will he overlook this? I'm going to ask you, Robert, if God is a just God, will he overlook what has been happening to our people?
Of course not. I mean, that wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't make sense.
Michaela, any comments?
Yes, I do agree with Sister E, but I would say that it is the people also, because for all these years, there were people who, if they really did have this God in their heart that they talk about, they would find ways to change and not just amend. They would reform the system. When you talk about taking the privilege of the system away from them, that's the part that makes them go crazy. When their own system told them they had to stay inside, they were at their own system's house with rifles. So it's about their mindset of entitlement to treat and be and act and take whatever it is they want. So it is the system that allows them to be like that, but it is the people in the system who want to maintain the system. That's what makes them racist to me. Working with attorneys and working with people who have the power to help people who are in positions who cannot help themselves. But as soon as they see it's people who are not them, there's a billion reasons why it's not that urgent. When this person 12 years ago had a felony, but the felony is no longer a felony because the judge is smoking weed. And so they can get jobs. If this one thing was taken down and reestablished as to whatever the crime level is now, it's not a felony. It costs $1,200, $1,500, $2,000, $3,000. Or it costs a pro bono attorney to go take care of it. But okay, this person's probably doing something else. That's why they're in jail. That's why they're in prison. They're not trying hard enough. It's the system that they perpetuate to keep like that. And then on the flip side of it, now that they're having these conversations, I'm tired of having the conversations, because I feel like if the people who claim to be saved, if you have to be told why something is evil, you don't have the Holy Spirit. You don't have his spirit, because how can you have his spirit, but you can't see people as people? Regardless, amen. You know, if these people are people made in God's image, but you are saved, you're up in the church, you're preaching and teaching and writing curriculum, and you have to be told to treat human beings like human beings, you do not have his spirit. And so unfortunately, salvation for them is right now. They are walking in their salvation. Salvation isn't just spiritual.
So you literally have a bunch of people in church who, quote unquote, think they're praising Jesus of the Bible, but they're not praising the Jesus of the Bible, because we know from the scriptures, God says they're going to say, Lord, when did we do these things in your name? And he's going to say, depart from me, workers. I never knew you. Apparently, there's people in church who are casting out demons, laying hands, praying for the sick, but God's going to say, depart from me, workers of iniquity. I never knew you. Who are these people? Right? Because you have a bunch of people in what we call white churches today who think they are saved. But, and like I say, I'm not saying who's saved or not, because that's above my pay grade. But you have a bunch of people sitting in church who think they're saved, who are sitting there going along with the status quo because they benefit from the system. They benefit from the black man being killed. They benefit from an oppressive system against the what they call African Americans.
Well, there is no system without the support of the people to keep that to make that system work. Right. So it is the people, right? And so you know they're in a
then, right?
Absolutely.
And when y'all say the people, we got to realize that it is the system that is driven by the people, but there are a few that are breaking away from the system. And with them breaking away from the system, they're losing a lot. Great example is Lucas Cameron. I follow him, and he's a Caucasian guy that actually follows the Israelite belief that we are the people. He lost a lot. But the thing is, when you break away from that system, you have to be willing to lose everything when you're tied to the system.
Well, yeah, there are some that's going to pursue truth and have a desire for truth and really truly desire to serve the Most High. Those who truly want to serve the Most High will see evil for what it is. Those who are caught up in religion will support the status quo. So when the cop kills us, these people are supporting the police. Like there's a cop, I saw a video today. He said he's getting out of being a cop. You know, it's too stressful. No one understands. Everyone hates him. Boo hoo hoo. Right. And all the comments, well, most of the comments was like, "Oh, we support you. Oh, post so and so. You know, we're sorry. Everyone hates you. We love you." And I'm like, these guys are the ones that's not following standard procedure when dealing with people. What happened to Officer Friendly for the black man?
Right.
The black man never saw Officer Friendly. Right. I mean, when we tell you, you know, I can't breathe, shouldn't that be enough? Right? Shouldn't that be enough? And anyone supporting that, something's wrong with you, right? Yes. You obviously do not serve the Most High, and your fruits bear witness. And I see this in some of our so-called black pastor leaders as well, right? Because they'll say all lives matter. I'm like, how does that come out of your mouth and you're black? Right.
I saw Officer Friendly. I saw him. He came into my class when I was in elementary school.
That's the only time you saw him.
Officer Friendly came into my class, and when I remember this because that's when I started really. I've never been in trouble, and in first grade, they planted. They were showing us how dogs find drugs and paraphernalia on people. I was the only black person in my class, and we came back inside. The Officer Friendly was there, and his dog went to my cubby hole and pulled out drugs from my cubby hole. And it was like to demonstrate what the dog is capable of doing. And because I had put my sweater back in my cubby hole, now it has the scent of it on there too. And I grabbed it and I put it on, and then the dog is coming at me. I don't do dogs. I don't really do creatures like that. And so I didn't understand. I'm not running to the police because it's your dog, and then my teacher isn't helping, and I'm just standing there. And my mother happened to work at the school, but at the same time, I shouldn't have to. I'm 6. I shouldn't have to deal with that.
He put drugs in your desk?
In my cubby hole, because in first grade we had little cubbies, and it was just like a demonstration to see what our dogs are trained to do. They can pick this out of anything, even if your lunchbox is in there, even if. And so I was curious, you know, that's cool to see a dog that can do tricks or whatever. And then it went to my cubby hole, and I'm like, no, there's nothing in my cubby hole. And I felt so, it was upsetting. It was upsetting. Everybody else, of course, there are preconceived notions that are built into people who are raised by racist people who you don't have to say a specific thing. They already know the code. It's ingrained in them, just like Yahuwah's Torah is ingrained in us for the most part, because that's why we have not turned on America, because his Torah is written in our heart. And it's interesting because when we look at why we haven't turned on them, even from the point of how we treat the foreigner, when we return to our land, the Torah tells us how to treat people. We don't have to be forced into not beating people down. Oh, you're going to serve us now. No, we serve Yahuwah, and then y'all are going to come in and we're going to treat you like a person, like you should be treated. And so Officer Friendly and I don't have a good, I was 6. I have never been in trouble. And I see the police and I'm just like, your dogs are evil and so are you. Like, that's how I feel, because that's the image that was painted for me.
You probably have your guard up. You had your guard up ever since then.
Well, I didn't understand that how it could be fair to even make an example out of me. If they were going to make an example, you know, put it somewhere innocuous. There was a whole bunch of places in the classroom that you could have placed it that it wasn't a person that would have been implicated.
So they knew it was your cubby, I guess.
Oh yeah, our cubbies have our names on it. The teacher told them, you know, they have our names on them.
Wow. So you were targeted.
That's how I felt.
Which is nothing new, but this just shows another example of what the system's all about. And something I was going to say is another reason why it's hard for people, Gentiles anyway, to come to the truth is this is a white supremacist system. So if they're white, they truly benefit, even if they don't admit that they do. They know they do behind closed doors. They admit it behind closed doors. Somebody even came, because I'm very open about my support for Israel, and even before I knew Israel was Israel, I was just for support for blacks, because I knew they were oppressed. And one person came to me one day and was like, but what? Why do you care? We benefit from it. I mean, it's white it's a white supremacist system, and we're white, so that's good for us. And he actually said that to me. Of course, I don't speak to that person anymore. But that was that's one example, and of course, I'm sure that's going through many others' mind.
This is interesting. Like I called in because yesterday and the day before, I was having this conversation with a Gentile that I work with, and he actually reports up to me. So we have an out of work relationship where I invited him to church when I was still going to church. And when I say he is like what I thought of, when he's the whitest person I've ever met in my life. And I mean that with all sincerity, and take that however it is taken. And I was when he got baptized, and we were going to church. He got baptized, I was there, all these things. And so now, as I have come into the truth and I have started learning about who I am in the truth, the righteous become more righteous. And like, I'm glad that I was already in Christ before I knew anything else, because it gives a foundation to where your heart is. And it has kept my tongue, because I'm listening. And I asked him the question day before yesterday, why all of a sudden is there a tint of jealousy that is it's palatable? There's tension and there's jealousy, and that was never the case. And so now it is the case. It's so obvious that I had to say something. And he says, well, basically, I'm not special anymore. And I said, well, you're not even fake Jewish. Like, you're not Jewish, so who cares? It doesn't change anything for you. But what's harmful in your thought process is that a person who you can earnestly look at. I would be one of those Black people that you would say, oh no, if you guys are going to go out and do something evil tonight, don't touch them. I know those Black people. Those are the good Black people. I'm one of those for you. So for you to look at me then and know that just from work, how I've been treated, and then hate the fact that somebody, and not just somebody, but the God of the universe chose us, and that makes you angry. And he was like, it makes me furious, because now I'm nothing. It's like, now what's the point? I'm like, what's the wow? You'd rather go to hell than to accept that it's not you. That's amazing to me.
And there's many scriptures.
Amazing.
And there's many scriptures that says that Gentiles can hold on to the covenant, and I think hopefully I'm doing what's right. I pray every single day to be in his covenant and to be led to the path to get to his kingdom. And me, I bless Israel every way that I can, knowing that they're the people. It matters to even people that aren't Israel, because and I said this before, if there's a certain group of people that Yah says is special and is set apart, then the whole world should treat them that way, and Israelites are a group of people that have not been treated that way at all.
So Robert, I know you don't speak for all white people, but what is your understanding of like the phrase Karens? You see these women who they call Karens, and the male version of that. What do you think is going on there? Because for me, be honest with you, I've never really experienced that. Now, some people said, we're seeing all of this because of cameras, but we've had cameras on phones for a while, and we weren't seeing that back in the day. It seems like there's a switch. Like right when we woke up, it's like the whole world went mad. I'm like, how do you see this thing? What's your experience with your friends and everyone else in society?
Yeah, it's definitely more prevalent now, for sure. And I mean, Well, my friends, I have a very, very tight inner circle, and if they're not on the same page, I don't want to be. I don't yoke myself with anybody that's not evenly yoked with, like, evenly spiritual with me. So I've actually cut out a lot of people just for that reason, non-believers, people that are on the other side of this fight, and things like that. But I still see them, though. I still see people. Obviously, I'm out in the world, and yeah, I mean, my perspective is that they just don't want to let go. It must be their ego or something that they just don't want to let go of this position of power, even if they're like dirt poor, homeless Gentile that still doesn't want to let go because, maybe in their world, they have some kind of one up on Israelites just for the system working in their benefit on their level. I don't understand it because, I always think that if you walk in Yah's word, he will provide for you. And no matter what it is, and maybe not necessarily have riches, but you're not going to go starving, so yeah, I don't understand what they're thinking. I can't, because I can't fathom it, because I would never, once I understand Yah's word more and more, I change my life. I adjust my life accordingly, whereas a lot of people, they may come to the truth and then just avoid it because it's an uncomfortable truth, and they don't want to feel that uncomfortability, because that awakening is something else. When you realize what you've been doing has been against Yah's word, these traditions, these graven images and things like that.
And see, to me, Rob, that's why I like having you on, because I
love being on.
I can tell, your heart is to serve the Most High, right? And so whatever his word says, or in your understanding of his word, you're trying to meet that understanding, right? Whereas some people want to go with tradition, and they don't care what the word really says. They go with their beliefs. And to me, it's like, you must be conformed to the image of his son. And how do you do that? But through his word, right?
Exactly.
And that's what we need to do. And for me, I know we have a few Gentiles who follow this channel, but how come they're not speaking up enough? I know you got your own channel. You've done some studies on and some teachings as well. I mean, you're vocal, and as you said, you help give to the poor and the disadvantaged Israelites. That's what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? That's true efforts to follow the Lord and be submissive to his will and his Holy Spirit. I respect that. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, all of the other people what do you think about the people who know who we are, who claims to be Gentiles and claim to, believe that we're Israel, but they don't say nothing, they don't do nothing, they don't, what are your thoughts? What would you say to them, I guess, is the question.
So I personally don't know any Gentiles that are awake to who Israel is, that don't change their life accordingly. The ones that I know, we do fellowship together and we talk all the time. So I don't all the ones that are against Israel, they don't know who Israel is. They think those people over there in the Middle East are Israel. So, but what would I say to them, or what do I say to them, is the same. It's funny, they say this, I don't know if it's funny, but they say the same thing to me, that one person said, you're denying Yah's people. You're refuting who Yah's people are, because I'm telling them that the Jews of the modern day are not the Jews from the Bible. And then I say, no, actually, you're the one that's refuting Yah's people. So it's kind of like they could. I haven't heard this yet, but I won't be surprised if somebody says that the Negroes are now the Revelation 2:9 and 3:9 people, or whatever. They're the Jews. Yeah, I haven't heard that yet, but I'm waiting for it. I'm definitely waiting for it. Because when the awakening really happens, there's people say, "See, they're the people from Revelation."
Well, there was one Gentile out of Australia, and she did a series of videos. Some of you may know who she is, and it was a good video. She tried to stand up for who we are. Started getting a lot of pressure from her people in Australia, because Australia is extremely racist. And next thing you know, she shut down her channel. She couldn't handle the pressure. But she came with a sincere heart. She did, share the information and evidence of who we are. But the blowback, I guess, was too much.
I think that's interesting to me, because I agree. I think that it's going to take the Ruach, the Holy Ruach, for that for a Gentile to really come in, and I say that with love, because it's one thing to know who the people are, because I mean that's one thing. It's another thing to then submit to the order, submit to what the scriptures say, and then begin to bless the people who the world is cursing. It's another thing to be persecuted like the people. And that's the part that is going to really divide even the most largest desirously wanting to follow. It's a special persecution, and it takes having his spirit to endure it.
You know, that's a profound statement, because, you know, Christ said, you know, if you're going to follow him, then you're going to have to suffer like him. And if you look at our people, you know, we have suffered, you know, curses any man that hang on the tree. They hang us on the tree. They kill us unjustly. Jesus said they persecuted me without a cause. They persecute us without cause. So any Gentile that's going to follow Israel and follow Christ, they're going to be persecuted, right? Now, I know a lot of Gentile Christians have always taught that they would be persecuted, but, you know, we haven't really seen that, right? They talk about that, but really, once you start saying, oh, the Negro, the true Israelites of the Bible, then yeah, you're probably going to be dealing with some persecution and losing friends for the word of God and things like that, right? But because the whole idea of Jesus no longer being white but being black, some people gonna have a problem with that, especially if they KKK.
Yeah, because you remember when we talked about this a while back that they kept saying Christians are going to be persecuted. I said, how are they going to persecute a system that controls the world?
Yeah, the church doesn't get persecuted.
That's what I'm saying. How are they going to persecute a system that owns the world? If anybody that's going to be persecuted, and we are experiencing even now, is us, because the moment you say you're Israel, persecution comes. Day one from when I said Israel, that's when I started getting, you know, all of us started getting attacked. Yep. So that's why I tell people, I said, we have to be very careful of the things that we say and pay attention to what's going on around us, because they consistently say Christians are going to be persecuted. Christians are going to be, I said, I haven't seen one Christian persecuted. I haven't seen one Christian miss a meal. But guess what? When you say you're Israel, you have to watch your family, you have to watch your job, you got to watch everything around you. So I really believe the true persecution comes with us, and it's not with them. I
agree. And, you know, the thing is, when it comes to our persecution, right? I mean, it's like it's not paid attention to, right? It's ignored, and oh, they're not suffering like they say. Oh, you know, that's reverse racism. Or you know, they're using the black card, and you know, they continue to like try to flip it on you. So like the thing you accuse me of, I accuse you of. If you're a racist, then I accuse you of being racist. And so then we can't even dialogue on the thing, because now everybody's racist, right? And so if I tell you stop hitting me on the head, you're gonna say, well, you racist. Well, no, stop hitting me on the head. Stop persecuting me. You see?
Well, I think of it like this. We have literally and truly been given over to a senseless people. And the senselessness is that they can't really provide that analogy, you know? Like when you try to explain something to them, especially when it comes to our plight, it just completely goes over their head. So I look at it like it's almost like a placeholder mentality. You know, God has to, the Most High has to put people there that's going to be a punishment. They're going to go through the judgment. And the judgment's supposed to be for the whole world to see. You can't have, you know, everybody saved up in here. That's just not how it's going to happen. And we know that that's not how it's going to happen, because they have seen, they have looked at the evidence. But you have to understand, because there's not any type of existential threat to them, I'm going to do what I want to do, because guess what? There's nobody knocking on my door. I don't need to worry about a Russia. I don't need to worry about China. Ain't nobody coming from me from Mexico. You know, they don't understand that that's the complacency, that's the danger. Because if you've seen the danger and you understand, because right now they know, they all know. Trust me, they all know whether or not they want to admit it? No, they're not going to admit it, because you're going to admit that your system was built on wickedness. And nobody wants to admit that their system was built on wickedness.
So when you say they know what? That we're being persecuted, or that we're Israel?
I think honestly both. It's just, you got to remember, if I don't acknowledge it or recognize it, then guess what? It doesn't exist. Remember, they think this is just generalizing. Sorry, Robert. This is just generalizing. Remember,
I don't take offense.
It's not a problem to them if, things don't burn, if things don't have a violent reaction, because in their minds, just like what you saw with the show, that trailer, it exemplified, they have to see a violent reaction for something to be taken seriously. And we didn't even have to go to the polls for changes to happen. Now, whether or not those changes really did anything, no, they never did. It's just always, some sort of token measure that doesn't never amount to anything.
It's a committee to talk about changing the change that needs to be changed.
Yeah.
But we know that is what they look at, that look, there's not a power that's coming from us that's going to save us. We already know what the scripture said. We're not going to be able to save ourselves. That's why the mighty arm of the Most High will do that for us. They just look at it like, okay, well, my God is in the likeness of Cesar Borgia, and I'm living good. Now, you got to understand, now all the pillars, because this was funny, last week at my job, we had like a meeting because they had to address the racial issues going on. Okay. And where I work is very, very, let me just tell you, in my company, well, for lack of better terms, there's about less than 30 of us out of about 600 people. Okay, so in the building, there's about 30 of us out of 600 people. And so they had to kind of have like a come to Jesus meeting, And so I had already spoken to my boss the day before, trying to give him some one-on-ones. And, for him, it was like, well, nonviolence is what we go off of because, I was involved in, doing some security stuff and yada, yada, yada. Back in Atlanta when Coretta Scott was doing something, He was like, that's what we listen to. But, the thing is okay, you'll listen to it. Just because you're listening, it doesn't really invoke a response. You see what I'm saying? I will listen, but I don't have to respond because you don't have any type of power to make me invoke any type of a response. And see, as soon as things started getting violent, they understood, we got to make a response because, now they're understanding the statistics. The statistics is, you go up in the hood, literally it's 95% of those businesses are not owned by African Americans.
Yeah, we're not blowing up our own stuff. That's their stuff.
Well, that's the other thing, right? I'm like, okay, we're not even doing most of the torching and the looting, right? It's the predominant race. It's not us.
I haven't seen one video of a black person doing any vandalism. Every video I've ever seen is white people, and I think a lot of them, most of them are paid antagonists, and some of them are actually police.
Yeah, they are agent provocateurs, and they're trying to frame us, right? And so when they decide to turn up the heat against the Negroes, the black people, then people are gonna say, yeah, do it, because we need peace. We need to stop this burning and this looting and these protests. And we're being framed, and that's why BLM is leading this thing, right? Because it's not a grassroots movement. I mean, you have grassroots people involved who don't understand,
who don't know, yeah.
But for the most part, it isn't us.
But they're not behind the driving wheel.
Yeah, exactly.
All of our movements have always been co-opted because We're sitting in captivity where it's going to be, you're going to be co-opted.
Right.
Nobody here has any type of power. We have no type of power. We have no financial power. We have no legislative or any type of legal power. We don't. And so when we're trying to say we're going to get laws on the books, we get nothing on the books. So when people are saying, "Oh, well, this is a system. We got to be in the system." I was given this analogy to a white lady I was working with last year in Saudi Arabia, and I told her, I said, listen, what happens when you have a house built on an uneven foundation? What happens? You can have the house built up, you can have everything looking nice, but over time, when the elements start to affect and impact the house will eventually start to what? Shift, because it's not supported, it's not stable. And then when you have all these other things, wind and rain and all these other elements that start to impact that house, pretty soon that house will collapse because it was never built on a firm foundation to begin with. See, when they built this house, this was a mansion. This was a mansion. Oh, I'm going to America, man. They got a mansion, but America has all these things, this, and this. You go to Europe, you speak to a European. I mean, a European, I'll actually tell their mind because they're from Europe. The funny thing is, Europeans don't have to really worry about code as much as Americans. Believe it or not. They don't have to worry about the code as much. Will they stay on code? Partially. But you got to remember, see, the whole system of white supremacy is founded here. The foundation's here in the United States. See, we made everything, we packaged everything to make it look cool, but what we will provide in terms of aid, okay, look this on up. This is a crazy statistic. Look this on up. The second highest recipient of federal dollars besides the military is the State Department, because the State Department is responsible for giving aid throughout the whole world. Okay, not some countries, throughout the whole world. So every country besides Russia, I can't say China, Iran, Venezuela, North Korea, every country that's not sanctioned receives money. And for them to be a recipient of the money, they have to be a recipient of certain ideology. Okay? They have to say, well, we got to go with these ideals. That's why a lot of African countries, they don't really like to provide our aid, because they are to accept the aid provided, because they know those strings attached comes with some sort of, here's an LGBTQ agenda that's attached to it. But because we hold that seat of power in our captivity, it's always been, see, back in like the 80s and 90s, look at all the stuff that's happening in the United States. It's such a great place to go. And these people come here and then they're realizing, man, this wasn't really the bill that I thought I was gonna receive. This isn't something that I had. It was shinier. It was shinier, but when I got here, it wasn't all that shiny. You know, when I see all these racial disparities and stuff like that, I don't know. But then they'll get the pat on the back. Well, hey.
So family, we're coming to the end. So if you have any closing comments, and also I'm gonna have one question for you all, and the question is, are we gonna get reparations? Yes or no? I say yes. I don't know what form.
So I had one topic I wanted to bring up real quick, and is basically and my answer to the reparations is yes, one form or another. I don't know if it's gonna be willingly or what, but yes, it's coming for sure. But the one topic I actually thought of was I went to a funeral recently, a couple of months ago, and I decided it's gonna be the very last funeral I ever go to because of so many spiritual things they do that are against. Yeah, well, this funeral that I went to was at a Black Catholic church, and and as an awakened Gentile, it was so confusing, or not confusing. I knew exactly what was going on, but I just wanted to get up and scream at everybody, because in the big sanctuary there was this giant wooden graven image, sculpture statue hanging up on the wall about 20 feet in the air, and it was probably about 10 feet tall, of the Caesar Borgia on a cross. And of course people bowing down to it and praying right there in the sanctuary. And I my spirit just hurt me so bad, because not only did I see there's people doing it, but there's Israelites doing it. And it took everything in me not to just get up, and I stood through. I didn't bow down. I just stood there and I was just praying to Yah, saying that I'm not praying to the statue, Father. I'm here because I was just doing everything to hope that he didn't think that I was praying to this statue. But I didn't know, and I still to this day, because it's a good friend of mine, obviously, because that's why I was at the funeral, is his father, and I don't know how to have this conversation with him, but because so I go to his house during like Christmas time, and they have all these Mary statues and stuff around, and the nativity scene and stuff, and I'm just like, I don't know what to like, how to open that conversation. And we have common friends that are in tune with who Israel is, so maybe I need to go with our common friends and say, hey, maybe we need to have a sit down. But I don't know, it was just like I said, it was that made me never want to go to a funeral ever again, even if it's like my own family or something. I'll just say my prayers from here, from the house.
I think that we will get reparations, because the Bible says that we're gonna get some stuff and then leave. I don't know if that means they'll send it ahead of us to meet us where we are, but we'll have great substance and possessions. My closing thought is that, keeping in mind that they're so afraid, the Gentiles, the system, however we term it, all of those who are in confederacy against the Hebrew Israelites, they're so afraid of seeing us unite with each other that they're willing to pretend to like us and entertain our plight just to break up the unity. And so I think that because every single time we come together aside from them, and it has nothing to do with the system, with them, it's just for our own edification, to strengthen ourselves and to come together for a plan for our own survival. They have found a way to even put Judases in the midst of us, because we have people who are so determined to be accepted by the system. And so I think in this time, it's awesome to do things like this together. I think that should be the number one thing that we focus on, is to be united. To be united to the detriment of everything else, is to be united under Yahusha and as a people.
Sister E.
Hello. I'm multitasking, so bear with me.
That's okay. We're closing down now. Reparations, yes or no?
Oh, definitely reparation. I think it's going to be a twofold thing. I think it'll be, monetary, but it's also, like we talked about, it's going to be that someone said in the comments, intellectual property. We carry so many attributes from being here, far as our experiences, our careers or schooling, all the things that we have, we can be able to take it to Africa and do great things with it. And even Dr. Africana knew that. And she brought it to the attention that, it's a wealth of knowledge here that they can bring here to help us. So I think it'll be a twofold thing, but I think the greatest asset will be our intellectual property, what we've gained being here, and how we're going to bring it over there to help them grow and develop. Because we got to understand that we shouldn't have a mindset of we're going over there to take. We're going over there to help. If you don't have the mindset of helping the nation grow, you don't need to go with us. We're there to help our brothers and sisters over there grow and develop, and we become one. like the African Union is trying to do now. We can't allow ourselves to get a divided mindset when we get there. We're going to have to work together and grow together, because if we divide, guess what? That's how we got conquered last time. Our ancestors got conquered last time. We're going to have to come together and work together, and it'll be that intellectual property that we have that will be our greatest asset.
Karis.
I do believe that the more we unite, and I think that we're uniting in a much more powerful way, because this has been going on strong for about 3 weeks with these protests. Now, I'm not fully supportive of the protest in terms of the Black Lives Matter leading it, but I understand the frustration and the angst that's involved in the protest. And I believe that that's the galvanization that's happening amongst Black people, which is going to cause the push for reparations to be materialized. Now, are there going to be repercussions after that? Absolutely.
All right, let's get Minister Tail.
Well, according to the scriptures, yes, we will get reparations. It will not be because the Gentiles want it. They will go kicking and screaming, but we will get it. And I do agree with Sister E that we need to be on code with our people in Africa. And I think as long as we shake off the Gentile mindset of capitalism and really go to say, more Hebrew kind of, say like in Africa, they have the word Ubuntu.
Mhm.
And basically the concept is, how can I move forward without bringing you with me? How, without you coming along with me, right? That is unity, and that's taking care of the family. And that's how the Israelites were. And, this capitalistic system divides people. It separates people. It makes people selfish. It is of the devil, right? The ways of Yah is, helping one another, loving one another, providing for the sick, the homeless, right? Taking care of everyone. So those who are of Yah, that's your nature, is to provide, take care of everyone, and don't leave any behind. I mean, how many jet planes, how many cars do you need if everyone has access to a jet plane in a car when they need one, right? This is a game that the Gentiles have played, putting these toys in front of us thinking we need it, and you make it available to everyone, and it's not a problem. You see, so Ubuntu, right? How can I go forward without bringing you with me? But we will get reparations.
Yeah. So I know I see some discussions going on about not being able to repay for all the evil they've done in alligator bait. But the bottom line is, we're going to go start a new life, and God is going to give us the wealth to start that new life. The Gentiles will be judged because the scripture says that happens first. So we need to understand the Bible first before we take a position on anything, because the Bible says that we're going to be wealthier than our ancestors. That means we're going to be wealthier than King Solomon, and he was very rich, right? So peace and blessings, Israel. Thanks for coming, everybody. Your captivity is ending.
Shalom.